So hello everybody, welcome to our webinar on portfolio power. I'm Serena, I'm a GP based in London and I do a number of things. I'm a portfolio GP, I run my local manager, I'm involved in teaching, lots of it. Is there anything I missed out? No, I think that's pretty much. I'm a mum of two and we organised this webinar because off the back of our last webinar, we had a lot of influx of requests of, we really want something about career guidance, and a name that kept popping up was Dr. Nikki Kanani. And a lot of GPs that kind of attend our webinars were interested in finding out about how to carve a really interesting portfolio career path. So we organised one, and Nikki kindly agreed to come on and share her story and her tips. So hi, Nikki.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great. I don't know about anyone else in the audience, but Serena and I have kids awake somewhere in the house. So apologies if you get the odd yell of "Mom!"
Yeah, or get to bed. Yeah, that might happen.
Yeah, it's real life. It's real life.
It is definitely. So for those of you, so I can see everyone signing on now. So you've got a chat box there. So in the chat box, just say hello, introduce yourself, and tell me what you're doing as a GP and where you're signing in from. And more importantly, if you can hear us and see us. And we're shortly going to be starting the presentation. So, oh, hello. Yep. Hi, Lisa. I think that says Ogechi. Hi, Ogechi. And Rupen says he's just landed. Welcome. Rebecca, hi. Hi, another Rebecca. If you guys that have signed are or sessional GPs, and how many of you are already doing different portfolio careers? Hi. So hello's coming through. Right, okay. Oh, hello from Cornwall, hello from Surrey. Someone's saying, have you started yet? We're starting now. Right, okay. So just a bit of housekeeping. So we want this webinar to be really interactive and really insightful. So grab a pen and paper, and there might be stuff you want to document in your appraisal from it. There might be resources that Nikki mentions that you might want to log. And just as an overview, the reason why this came about is because there seems to be a general feeling amongst many of us GPs like me in primary care, where we just kind of want to know what other career options are available to us. Maybe we're interested in leadership, maybe we're interested in influencing primary care strategy, but we don't really know how to do it. And especially for those of us that have children, sometimes it can feel like a bit prohibitive that, oh, but I've got kids, I'd love to do that, but I don't think I can do it, or how would I do it, or would anyone give me the role? And that's where actually I'm really I find Nikki's career really inspirational, how actually as a female GP and a mum, she's managed to kind of juggle it all and bring it all together. So we're going to find out what her secret is. If you will be kind of, off the back of it, inspired to, apply for lots of different things and kind of carve a career that you're even more passionate about. Without further ado, Nikki, I'm you. And I know you've got lots of roles, GP, mum, director of primary care, you're part of the King's Fund, loads of things. So I'm going to let you introduce all of that and do it justice, and I will hand over to you now.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try and watch the chat as well, so as particular points come through, I'll try and answer those. Oh, hi Hannah, who has more kids than we do, Serena. Hannah has 3. I think there's probably stuff we can learn off each other, so I'll be looking out for kind of your thoughts and your experiences as well. I think what's really important is if we go on to the first slide. In fact, can I do that myself? Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So I thought it would be worth just telling you a little bit about myself and my journey. Hopefully that will be interesting, and then a little bit about what I'm doing and how I got here, and really happy just to kind of explore it a bit. Thank you for the amazing intros, Serena. But, you know, to be honest, sometimes it feels like a bit of a whirlwind. As somebody said to me today, I always seem to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I'm not sure how helpful that is. But I'm a mum of two, as Serena said. So if you look on the right side first, I do have a pen. Look, I can do this very cleverly. Actually, I won't go into that. So you can see a picture of me and the kids in the Isle of Wight last week. That's my husband, who is a full-time GP partner. So somebody's just commented on Hannah and all of her roles. And Rebecca, yes, you're right. She does really fit all of that in, and she's utterly brilliant. So there's lots of us just trying to kind of juggle it, make it all happen. So I am a mum. I think that's definitely kind of my core, who I am. And you can see in the middle kind of distance in the back there, I'm also part of a really big family. Sybil, yes, I'll talk a little bit about what happened with my predecessor and this particular role in a little bit, if that's all right. In the foreground here, there is my practice team, and you've got a photo of my friends, and this picture that one of my kids' friends did about the NHS. And these are kind of the different facets of me as an individual. And I started off like many of us. So as I said, you know, a lot of this has been definitely accidental and being in interesting places, but I'm hoping that I can give you some reflections on that. Started off as a medical student who pretty much enjoyed doing every rotation that came about. So every rotation I did, I seemed to enjoy. I didn't really have a particular view for the future, just that I was interested in being interested, which wasn't, as it turns out, a particularly bad thing. I did my house jobs in Southeast London, and actually did most of them in a hospital on the borders of out of Southeast London, Dartford and Gravesham NHS Trust. And at the time, I'd done a number of rotations there and generally felt quite frustrated about, I suppose what you'd now call flow, but essentially how patients were being bounced around the wards, how frustrating it was for clinicians. And essentially, I think I complained quite a lot about what people were experiencing. And the deputy chief exec of the trust at the time, a woman called Susan, who's still a friend, and I'll come on to that, said to me, well, you know, if you're going to complain about this, why don't you work for us a little bit? And it started off as kind of trying to give some advice about flow, but we quickly realised that we needed to actually spend quite a bit of time thinking about what the flow through the organisation looked like. So the trust employed me as, we couldn't think of a better name, but we called it a service modernisation lead. So I worked in the organisation. We started redesigning the way that we worked in A&E, but ended up doing a kind of full-scale redesign of the medical directorates or flow within that. Ended up redesigning some of the community offer, so kind of hospital at home team before they were a fun thing to do or a cool thing to do. And that was triple funded between the acute trust, the PCT and the local authority at the time. So really enjoyed coming up with kind of practical, clinically led solutions to things that had really irritated me and my colleagues. And in that year, I got the chance to just try out some different techniques that helped me improve the services that I was working as part of. So I did my lean training, my Prince 2 project management, and a certificate in managing in health and social care. And it was sort of before any of the fellowships or other opportunities out there that are out there now. But I thought, you know, that was an interesting way to kind of put together some of the skills and techniques I'd need to achieve the sort of changes that myself and my deputy chief exec at the time wanted to see. But I ended up in the community and working with the local GPs, and actually just really loved it and realised that general practice actually had a much greater pull than any of the other things that I'd been interested in before. So for me, it then meant actually there's the chance for me to try out something different. And I did my GP training in Southeast London because I just quite enjoyed being around that area. And at the PCT at the time in Bexley, before the Health and Social Care Act, the chief exec had sort of heard that I'd had some experience in service redesign and said, well, come and try stuff out. So I suppose one of my key messages is don't be afraid to try out different things. It's worked out really well for me, both in terms of things that have worked well and things that have worked less well, to be very honest, but tried out lots of things. And during my training, which took forever, I took time to have my kids as well, which was brilliant. Actually, it worked really well in registrar year, which I'm sure many of you will also recognise or have experienced as well. Just seen some more people join. Hello, people who've just joined. Hi, Kate. So I took a long time to do my GP training, but in that time worked with the PCT, did work around integrated care, screening, redesign of some of the kind of local care pathways, and then took some time out actually and said I wanted to see other bits of the system. So I worked with NHS Direct just before it became NHS 11, which was quite challenging. Oh, thank you, Madiha. Hello. But tried out different bits of systems. I worked in a community trust. I worked at a national level with National Association of Primary Care, the Faculty of Medical Leadership and Management before that was set up, and just tried to get a feel for different bits of the system and understand how the bigger system was put together.
So Nikki, sorry to interrupt, but what would be really interesting to know is like, how did you get onto those roles? So were you doing like a few sessions a week as a GP then, and then how did you find out? Because I think a common thread, like a lot of people sent in questions beforehand, and I think a common thread was where are these opportunities and how do I get them? And I think for a lot of us, when you're in the day-to-day, like you're just seeing patients and you go home and then you're doing your document and you go back and you see it, sometimes it's quite hard to think, okay, I really want to do this other stuff, like how do I get onto it? So how did you kind of get a chance to do all those roles? How did you find out about them? How did you, kind of get put in touch with them and connect with them?
So, really good question. A lot of them were sort of fairly new roles. So I always have, and I always will do general practice alongside my portfolio. Sometimes more time in general practice, sometimes less. So right now, this job takes up so much of my time and energy. So I go out to Bexley once a week, but genuinely that, it's hard to keep up the kind of the pace of everything. And we can talk about that. But over the years, it's through discussion and asking and trying out things. I think what's really important is finding stuff that you really want to get involved with. So whether it's because you're frustrated about it or you can see it happening better, or actually want some space to breathe outside of your clinical sessions, having conversations has always been the way for me to try out something different. And sometimes that has been quite short pieces, so a short piece of time trying out something. And sometimes that's turned into an actual role as well. Right now, and we can talk more about this, the local kind of world is changing so much, and for me, I think there's lots of opportunities out there, whether that's through your CCG or through your newly forming network, through your local federation. Sometimes it is, certainly in the early days, and for me, they were unpaid roles, just learning how the system worked, trying to understand where I could have a role and be able to do something. But even in those roles, I got a chance to just try out different things and get my own experience base up. So that then when I started to apply for things, say for NHS Direct and for FMLM and NAPC, I could actually go and say, well, I've been able to look at this particular service or pathway. I think it's really important to find the thing that you feel really energized by those. So for me, it always was trying to find something, trying to solve something. I really like that, and that's why commissioning was really exciting for me. Does that answer some of the questions that you've been having?
Yeah, definitely.
So after various bits in and around the system, and that was sort of a bit of national and a bit of local and regional stuff, we had the Health and Social Care Act come in, and as my PCT turned into a CCG, like many areas, there was a massive loss of staff from about 140 down to 70 odd. Hannah, I'll come to that. Really good point on the chat there, if you're looking at the chat, guys. So it comes down to about 70 people. We had to go through an authorization process, and the old team said, could you come back and work with us, because we need to go through this process and you've got some local knowledge. So I started doing some of the old kind of policies and some of the stuff we needed to do for authorization, and then just really got into commissioning again. So joined the CCG, became vice chair and then chair, and then my CCG chief officer left and moved on to a new role, so I applied for and got a chief clinical officer role. I'll pause there. So Hannah is saying, have people created the roles for you rather than applications? Sometimes, but in a hugely supportive way, in the sense that, you know, if I've said, actually, I'm really frustrated by the way that we've delivered X, people have sort of said, you know, come along and help us solve that, because I think people are often surprised that you're keen to do things and to try things out and to lend your time and expertise, and that clinical viewpoint and expertise is really precious. So to be able to have that time, you know, to be able to have your skills and your experience, people really value it. So having that conversation is really important as well.
Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, if you do put yourself forward, then sometimes, like I found, like when I put myself forward and they've said, oh, okay, and then something else has come up off the back of that. So that's always been quite useful. And actually stable, so I'm a locum and I actually have done lots of active roles in my CCG. And often, like sometimes if I wasn't suitable for one, they often would then draw me into others that were more suitable to my career. So I don't know. I don't know if that's across the board, but I've definitely had a lot of opportunities because I've asked for them, or I've said, you know, can I get involved in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So on your point, Sybil, that feels really frustrating. I've been particularly more recently and in this role talking to some of the sessional GP leads and leaders around the country who work in different roles, whether that's for GPC or represent sessional GPs. And I'm really keen that things that we put out from now on, guidance from NHS England, talks about the role of the sessional in helping to shape and lead local systems. Because, you know, you have lots to bring, and I think we need to move on from a traditional approach to clinical leadership, and give people opportunities. And for me, and I don't know actually, Serena, but whether the groups that are on, you know, webinars like this can form networks and be able to learn from each other. And I have so many different kind of networks and groups that I've been able to tap into and kind of either say, actually, I'm thinking about doing something new and I need to move on, or say, I'm really struggling here. Do you have an idea about how I manage this particular situation, or how I could do something differently? And so that tribe, having that team around you, having that network is a really important part of this as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it can be quite isolating sometimes in general practice, but if you can reach out and start forming groups around yourself, definitely, I think that does help give a lot of leverage in terms of opportunities that may come your way.
And for me, this is very much the philosophy behind the move towards primary care networks, or whatever you call it in your own area. And some of you will have seen the long-term plan and the GP contract. With the network contract is about working together, not to undermine the role of the individual practice and the, you know, the traditional aspects of general practice that we all value and recognise, but to be able to have opportunities to work differently, to create a portfolio, because actually at a slightly bigger scale, you can, you know, work X number of sessions potentially flexibly because of the kids or being a carer or whatever it is, and be able to try out things that you're interested in or excited about as well. So the last kind of transitions have been bigger and harder than I either expected or necessarily wanted. So when my chief officer left from the CCG, we had the opportunity of having a new chief officer come in, but what I really wanted to do was use the clinical leadership and add the financial accountability as well, so we could really focus on getting some value-based outcomes for the residents, but also for our local healthcare systems, so practices and the acute trust and all of that. And that was a phenomenal role. I have to say, it was definitely the role that had the biggest highs and lows for me. We had some great outcomes for people and for our local kind of practices and healthcare professionals, but it was phenomenally challenging as well in terms of trying to manage a budget that I inherited that was already in deficit. So that was very challenging. And when my CCG was moving to a managed structure, which many of yours will be, i.e. working with other CCGs, I thought it was a good opportunity to look for something new. And Saibal, you asked earlier, I applied for this, the deputy version of this role just over a year ago now, in fact, a year and a couple of weeks. And I was appointed as a job share with Raj, who is a very experienced senior partner from the north who really understands kind of NHS England governance and process. And so we were working together happily for 6 months as deputy to my predecessor. And Saibal, just to touch on what you mentioned, my predecessor, he wasn't sacked, he resigned at the beginning of August because of some anonymous comments online, and Simon Stevens, who's the chief exec of the NHS, asked me to step up into the role. So I'm still acting medical director for primary care, and there will be an appointment process at some point, but that's sort of essentially how I've gone through different things and tried out different things. So Rupen says, I had a CCG role for 7 years, but had to give it out once I quit my partnership. So you had to be a partner or salary to be able to continue. Yeah, I mean, I think that is disappointing. And I think now we see a shift with CCGs, as Madhu has mentioned, but also there will be other opportunities coming through, which I know Hannah and others have been starting to look into. So I think now's the time to definitely think about what's excited you, what are you interested in, whether that's education, training, it might be around a particular specialty, or it might be around leadership and management. And I promise you, if you dip a toe in and try it out, you'll really enjoy it. And I have done.
With when you said you applied for the deputy position, did someone email you and say there's a job going, or did you go onto NHS? Like, how would people that are interested in maybe connecting with roles, either like in their CCG or NHS England, like how did you hear about it? And then off the back of that, how did you develop the credentials to then get the job? So what were the important things that you needed to do, and that you thought, okay, that was really helpful?
So I'll take it in reverse order. I did a master's in commissioning a few years ago. Well, when I was actually so I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. So I was breastfeeding the 7-year-old while I did my master's in Birmingham.
7-month-old.
Yeah, well, she was newborn. So
newborn.
I was 20. So yeah, 2011. Yeah. I was. There used to be an organisation called Commissioning Support for London who would support you to do additional kind of degrees and qualifications. So there's always things like this out there, and I've got some resources at the end of the pack which you can have a look at. But there are loads of local kind of leadership initiatives and offers and networks that often will support you to get further, qualifications. And I think I got to the point where I had lots of experience, but hadn't got the underpinning kind of theory around commissioning and how you commission and deliver services well. So when this master's came up, I applied for it and got it. So it was a funded master's, and it was early in 2011. And then I got pregnant, and I didn't want to say, because I didn't want them not to let me do my master's. So I turned up in the September of 2011 when I started, heavily pregnant, having had my son a bit early, actually, my older son. So sort of going up to Birmingham, slightly worried that I was going to have an early baby in Birmingham, far away from home. luckily that didn't happen. And they saw me and they were incredibly supportive and said, you know, when you come up, bring someone with you if that's the way to do it, bring the baby, which I did. So when I had the sessions for the masters, I took my mum, took my sister. I breastfed through the first sort of 8 months of that masters, to be honest. So all the people on that masters felt quite close to my daughter. But that was really important for me to be able to do that, because it gave me some really practical points and theory and learning, which I've been able to apply again and again in my work today. But in terms of applying for the deputy role, I think this is about the networks, like having people and knowing people in different places and in different ways was really important. So I knew somebody at NHS England who'd said, I think we're going to start looking at having more opportunities to work with NHS England, so keep your eye out. Someone else then said to me, oh, it's live, there's a job, you know, at NHS England. And because I'd had such an up and down experience in the CCG, I really wanted to understand what happened at NHS England and why I'd experienced some of the fragmentation and the frustration that many of you probably face in your own environment. So I applied for that. I think the feedback from my interview, like I said, I was offered the job as a job share, partly because I wanted it to work around retaining my clinical practice and the kids. But the feedback from my interview was very much, we're worried that you're going to get really frustrated because we don't do things in the way that you will have done in all of your different roles, because all of my previous roles have been very local and very connected to local kind of experience and being able to deliver locally for people, whether that's, you know, healthcare professionals or national or for patients. So we're just really worried that you're going to get very frustrated. But we'd like you to try this, you know, to come and do this job. So that's how I ended up going to NHS England, and it definitely has both amazed me and frustrated me, probably in equal measures, but I can come on to that. Fran said, what's my daily schedule like now, and what was my schedule like when I was building my own platform? Really mixed. So if I talk about what my week looks like now, if that's useful, I can't remember what order I did my slides, but I'm going to just move things on a little bit.
Do you want me to go on to the next slide?
Oh yeah.
Oh, hold on. I think I've gone far. This one?
Yeah. So I just before I go into the kind of the detail of the schedule, I've picked up on some of this. So knowing what you want to achieve. I don't mean this aspirationally. It does. I don't, and I certainly don't mean this in terms of career. So, you know, people talk about knowing exactly where you want to go and planning for the future. I don't think I've done this once. I certainly didn't expect to end up doing this role, but being really aware of what drives you, what you're inspired by, and what you're frustrated by. And being able to turn that into something tangible in your day job is really important, because it gives you a sense of value and purpose, and it commits you to working in a way that's different. So, and I'll come on to that in a bit. But one of the things that I think is really important, and I've talked about sort of having tribes and networks to test things out. I've had great support from family, really good friend circle who help out and everything, but having mentoring and coaching has been really key to this as well. So I mean, my current coach I've been with for a long time, and prior to that, you know, being able to have a mentor to take me through some of those difficult kind of points in my career has been critical. So yes, I know, yeah, you're asking exactly what my day-to-day schedule looks like, so I'll come on to that. Currently on a Monday, so I'll try and do this quickly for everyone who finds it boring. So I drop off 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday and Friday. My husband does drop off on Wednesday and Thursday. I do pick up on Monday and Friday. My husband does Tuesday and Thursday, so we split it evenly, and my mum and dad do the Wednesday. So that kind of is how the kids bit works. I definitely, on my shorter days where I'm in, because, you know, in later or leave earlier because of the kids, I end up doing quite a bit of work in the evening. That works for me, because I like to come home, do bedtime, bath, you know, whatever. Not tonight because they're still awake, and so hubby's doing that right now. But you know, I quite like to be at home and be there for that stuff. And then once we're in bed, I tend to kind of then switch on my computer and work. Tuesdays are my clinical days, and then Monday, I tend to call them kind of corporate days. So I'm in the organisation, I try and catch up with the comms team. So some of you might have recognised that sometimes, so I have an amazing comms team at NHS England, but we used to have quite fragmented messages coming out. So we do a lot of work around saying, you know, you can, you know, get your self-care online and all of that. And then we put out some comms saying, see your GP. So we've been trying to pull that all together. So I speak to comms team on a Monday. I do all my diary management with my team on a Monday, check in with the wider team as well. So that then we're set up for the rest of the week. I also look at any brewing issues, either from media or from the regions, because I'm linking with the regional medical directors. Wednesday, Thursday tend to be either meetings internally. I try and do visits on a Wednesday or Thursday as well, mainly on a Thursday. I can get quite a long day out of that. I try and get out around the country most weeks. Ideally ending with a next gen session if I can, because they are brilliant. And I'll talk about that if I don't. I'll talk about that in a moment. And Fridays I try and work from home because I find that if I'm in the office or if I'm out and about, I tend to not get much work done. I have a lot of meetings but not actually get work done. So that tends to be my week. I do check in with my emails and the WhatsApps, messages and Twitter and everything quite a lot, but I have chosen to do that because I quite like being connected to what's going on out there. And Nkechi asks, what made you decide on the master's topic? So it was called Strategic Commissioning in Health, and I knew that I love service redesign, but I also knew part of a bigger cycle, the wider kind of strategic commissioning cycle. So there were a range of different things that were out there in terms of options around masters and actually MBAs, and I really wanted to put my learning in context. I needed to understand how we prioritise, how we allocated resources, how to manage a budget across a pathway of care, how to get the right data in place, how to make, you know, take people on that journey to deliver a new kind of newly designed pathway. So commissioning felt right for me. And that's why I chose it. Hannah, my coaching, has it been funded or have I invested in it? Almost. So at the beginning, I funded a lot of it myself, whether that was mentoring or coaching. Mentoring was easier, actually. My mentoring over the years, I've asked people to mentor me, and they've said yes. So thank you.
So the London Dean did mentoring scheme a while back, which I did, and I thought it was brilliant. And then, I mean, are your coaches and mentors, are they other GPs, or have you like gone outside of?
I've almost always had coaches and mentors outside. So my mentors, interesting, have always been in a medical field, but not general practice. Mm-hmm. My coach is not a life coach, but he has had me on the sofa crying once. So who knows?
We've all been there. We've all been there.
So he is. So my mentor is a man. He is somebody that was introduced to about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I think I spoke on a course with him or something like that, and then just realised that I really liked him and I got along with him, which was important. And initially I funded it, and then after that I said to my organisation, because by then I was in the CCG, that actually I need this for my personal development. And interestingly, Apfran and Hannah, just on the coaching point, when I came to NHS England, I was told that I could only have a coach from their list of coaches, and my coach wasn't on the list, so I was quite panicky because I didn't want a different coach, and then I thought, right, I'm going to have to pay for my own coach again. And then, you know what, I asked. So I just said, look, I can't, you know, if you want me to do the best I can in my job, and this took quite a bit of courage, and because we all have our inner demons, and you know, it does, you know, even now I struggle sometimes to ask for what I need. And I said, I need to be supported to have my coach, and everyone went, yeah, absolutely, let's make it happen. So it was quite phenomenal, actually. By asking, I was invested in and supported, and that is actually part of what makes me feel valued when I do jobs. When people say yes, you know, we will support that. So one of the things we wanted to pick up was sort of juggling, and I think some of this we've picked up through the description of my week, but I'm really happy to talk more about that. This is, so the top left, as you look at it, is usually me. It's been a long week, me in the middle of Tuesday. That's usually because that's my clinical day as well. And my clinical day is still my hardest day, so I just want that clearly out there. It is hard. It is hard, and that's not necessarily just a system; it's a complexity and all of that as well. But I try and move most days in one way or in another, mainly because that allows me to then eat lots, which I do enjoy doing, but also because it's good for my own mental health, I think. And I've said this before, I think, to Hannah and others, you know, it just is my time to think and breathe and deal with what feels challenging for me. I try to do, now this might sound a bit odd to people, but when I'm working out, I try and build in visualization. So I look at the day, so I go early in the morning. So I look at the day and I figure out what I'm worried about or what I need to do well or better, and think through how I'm going to manage that. Because most days, particularly in this job, I have tricky or complex or complicated conversations. And even though we've launched the new contract, we're now talking about Brexit and delivering a new workforce plan in the next 3 weeks and all of that sort of stuff. And they feel like quite big thoughts and decisions every day. So I do need that time for me at the beginning, just to think about how I'm going to manage the day. And then there's everything else. I mean, whether you're a parent or a carer or wherever, whatever other things you have in your life, that's my Ocado app. I do use a lot of apps to help my life kind of function, and Alexa and everything else, and genuinely use it in a way that works really well for us and helps me and my husband sort of do this together, actually. And I also, I don't know if my face is in front of this, as it was just a picture of a book, but I try and read. And where I find life has got very busy in the last 6 months in this role, I've moved on to, I still read actual books, but get through less. But I do have my Audible on my phone, because I found I'm traveling a lot, and I try and just listen to something or someone else as much as I can, to help break up my day a little bit.
Can I ask what your
Oh, sorry, I lost.
Oh, you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, that's weird. I've got an echo. Not sure why. I'll ask you at the end. Hopefully the signal will be a bit better. I was just going to say, what's your favourite book recommendation?
Oh, my favourite book. Well, my original all-time favourite book is Shantaram, which is this incredible romp through Mumbai, and I just recommend it. Just read it.
Yeah, I've read that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that's my original kind of best book. If you move away from kind of Judy Blume or whatever when I was a kid, I don't think. Okay, I'm going to come on to those questions. Do I get through a book a week? Oh my gosh, I wish I did. I used to. I mean, so one thing I do, and I do think is quite a useful skill, is I speed read. Like I massively speed read, because so I can get a few hundred emails a day, and many of those have attachments, and many of those are things that I have to sign off and approve very quickly. So the pace is very, very fast. I thought at CCG level things felt fast, but but here, if I haven't replied to something within sometimes hours, not even a day, well, it's just not an option, because the organisation moves very quickly. So I would say I get through a paper book a week, a paper book a month, and then an Audible probably a month as well. So maybe 2 books. And Van, it's a job with NHS England, well paid. It depends on what your view of well paid is. Yes, it is. I've maintained, actually I've maintained the same income for the last 3 or 4 years, so I haven't got a pay rise or anything, because it works for, you know, it works for me. I'm not I don't need more. I think it's important to be financially remunerated for the work that you do, and I think that's quite a difficult conversation to have sometimes. But I think it's important to do that. I didn't realise YouTubers do book summaries. That's cool. And Serena, I haven't tried out Blinkist, but I've heard great things about it as well. But I think it's important just to be able to try it, you know, to just get a different perspective and a different viewpoint and a different experience. So I'll move on because I want to make sure I pick up questions at the end as well. So Serena, so you know what I wish I knew then that I know now, and so it's both of these things that are kind of slightly contrary, but are actually quite the same thing. So on the right, belief. So this is one of my favourite quotes, because the original quote is, "She believed she could, so she did." And I love that, and especially with International Women's Day next week and all of that, I think that's a phenomenal quote. But actually, you know, she was tired, so she or he rested, and you know what? The world went on, and it was okay. She knew she could try again tomorrow. So just knowing that, although things are fast-paced in terms of immediate decisions, the bigger stuff doesn't change too much. I remember when I had my son, my number one, I was really worried about going on maternity leave and what would I miss and what would I miss out on, and you just don't. And you probably know this already, but things move on, but they sort of don't. Relationships are more important. So I've maintained relationships with people in healthcare throughout my career, and many of them I'll bump into again in a different place or environment, not in a bad way because they've been recycled through the system, but actually because a lot of them are brilliant people and they've been interesting and they've done interesting work, and I'll come across them again in a different way. So you don't have to speed through stuff. Find things that you enjoy, find things that bring you joy and pleasure, and take your time with it. Try it out, give it a chance to kind of, you know, for you to live it and see how it feels. And then there's the other thing, and I find this one harder in a sense. You will always be too much of something for someone, and you can apologize for mistakes, and I absolutely will and do, and I'm very honest about them. But don't apologize for being who you are, and that's a harder one, I think, sometimes to surround yourself with. At the moment, I'll be very honest, and the NHS England national team know this. You know, I'm surrounded by lots of men in suits who are a lot older than me, and I am often anxious about, you know, what I'm going to say or what I have said, and I end up just remembering that I'm just going to do it my way. And today, actually, I was told by somebody who is on the board of NHS England, he was like, oh, you know, you just talk really differently. And I don't think it was, in fact, I know he didn't mean it in a bad way. It was just different. And diversity of thought and experience, it is important. We know it's important, but having that time to be able to bring that to the table is critical. And you have to be who you are, because actually, if you become the same as everyone else, it doesn't make a difference in the same way then as you being you. So that's what I want to keep. I want to remind others. I want to remind myself. And knowing these things, you have to bring other people with you. There's this really nice GIF, or it's not of a person scaling a ladder up to the stars, and you need to keep on. You need to keep doing that. You need to keep scaling that ladder, but leaving that ladder for other people. So I mentor 6 people at the moment. All of them are equally loved by me, but all of them are on a pause when I took on this role, because I was just really honest with them and said, I'm really struggling to run this role and my family and everything else. So honesty, but make yourself accessible for other people as well. Fran has said it's about removing mental fatigue. Some of you might have been at the same conference as me last year, but a guy called Oliver Nyumbu said, you make your most critical decisions. He said, watch out for decision fatigue, because actually your most critical decisions are the first 5 that you make every day. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is awful, because I wake up and I'm thinking, you know, do they have sports, or, you know, what should I put in their snack boxes and stuff? And then I suddenly have to make a really big decision about the contract. And I do worry about that decision fatigue or that mental fatigue. And so having that space throughout the day is really important as well. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough. Nkechi, did I take on lots of leadership roles during medical school and training? No, not really. I enjoyed medical school. Had a great set of friends. I probably made it to most of my lectures, but that was about it. I quite enjoyed neuroscience. I did a intercalated BSc in psychosexual theories of gender reassignment. I spoke to the Imperial Intercalated BSc students a couple of weeks ago who are doing a BSc on healthcare management. I thought, God, I should have done that, but never mind. No, I didn't. Shall I move on, Serena?
Yeah, go for it.
So really practical things for me, and I think I've sort of pulled out some of them already, but you have a massive gift as you in yourself, as who you are, and I forget that sometimes for myself. You've got to remember that for yourself, and being a clinician in a system that hasn't always had access to enough clinicians is phenomenal, and people really value what you have to say and what your experiences are. So please remember that and use that and tie that into your value set, as I spoke about before. Every day is a new day. Every day is a chance to try out something. So tomorrow, if nothing else, message someone that you're either in your local circle. I think Twitter's a great way to find new people to kind of either shadow or learn from, or have an interesting conversation with, or connect with someone on here through Serena's networks, to just have a conversation and start building your own network if you haven't done already. And when I say network, I mean a tribe, someone who's got your back and who will help you and help think through things with you, and who will be at your table, who will compensate for some of the things that you don't have. So some of the stuff I'm really not good at, I have a team of people, both actually in my NHS England job and virtually through my networks, who will help to compensate for some of the things that I don't have. You know, I'm not a 10-session partner for 40 years. I'm not. But my deputy is, so he's phenomenal. Okay, not 40 years. I'm thankful he's not on here because he's not.
People are, I'm how old?
I know, but he has got that experience base. So Andrew, yourself, don't feel, very practically, don't feel like you have to be everything for everyone or for every role that you do. It's okay to have gaps. Know where your gaps are, figure those out, but also make sure that you bring that team around you to fill those gaps. Don't feel like you have to fill every box that everyone sets out ahead of you. Ask questions, ask for help, ask to have a leg up or a pull up or whatever it is. And it is that Obama kind of quote. That's massive, to give that opportunity to someone else when you do get it for yourself. So make sure you then pay it forward, because I think we haven't done enough of that as a system for a very long time. So ask for help and then pass it on by giving someone else help as well. And honestly, there are lots of people out there that are there to help you. So I think I'm very accessible through Twitter and through Facebook if you direct message me, but through my phone, through my WhatsApp groups and stuff. So if there's stuff that you've been caught by or challenged by or tripped up by or frustrated by and you're not getting anywhere, let me know, because if I can't help you, I'll make sure I find somebody that does. So just make sure you ask for that help to try out something else or try out something differently.
I think I can actually reiterate and kind of reiterate that point you're making, because I remember when I asked you about the webinar, I don't know if you remember, but so I hadn't been on my social media for like a week. I think my son had tonsillitis or something, so I was just busy with other stuff, and I was like, oh, I've got to, everyone keeps emailing me about this webinar, I've got to organise it. And your name kept coming up, and then I got linked in with you. Yeah. And someone said, oh, Nikki, it'd be brilliant to do it. So I was messaging you whilst you were actually being appointed for this new NHS England role. And I had no idea. And then when we spoke, you were like, I'm so sorry for the delay in getting back to you, but I've just had like a really hectic few days. And I was like, oh, no, don't worry. And I was like, so I want to do this webinar. And then you were like, yeah, cool, like, let's do it. And then it was only like a week later when one of the first 5 leads said, oh, so did you connect with Nikki? Because she's been really busy. She's doing this new NHS England role. And I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I had no idea. And there I was talking to you about, listen, can we organize this webinar? And then you're like,
no, it's so
new role. So apologies.
No, I didn't see it like that at all. And I was
actually, I believe when you say you'll help people, you definitely will, because you didn't say to me, listen, I'm really busy with like lots of busy stuff at the moment. You were like, yeah, of course. And obviously I didn't realize you were busy with that stuff, but you definitely did kind of, get stuck in and stuff. So I appreciate that.
Oh, well, no, good. But so it works really well with what's asked, because actually most of the time people don't mind being asked. In fact, they quite like being asked. And I've just tried to lay out some of the things that, because actually I get you asked other things apart from commissioning. So there will be things within the practice. So whether you're sessional, whether you're partnered, there will be different things that you can get involved in. And again, usually people will be quite pleased that you are, so you can try out. So my husband, as I said, is a senior partner in a practice, and when his team, the sessional doctors particularly, say, oh, actually, could I try out being the lead for something, or could I help you with X? He loves it, and it gives that person experience, and it provides some support to your local team within the practice, within your network. I mean, certainly with the new primary care networks, or with the primary care networks that we're trying to support from a bottom-up perspective, there will be opportunities to be part of those, to lead those. We're trying to offer fellowships at different levels as well, so that will be another option. And those fellowships, so I've talked a lot about commissioning because I like that, but we're looking at things within palliative care, frailty, the community. So just looking out for different chances to apply your expertise and your interest. And actually there are other things, there's federations, there's your LMC, there's, training hubs or CPENs, community education provider networks, if that's more what you're interested in. And then there's all the kind of different regional clinical networks as well. So actually, so I had somebody who came to me a while ago and just said, look, I'm really passionate for lots of reasons around supporting people with perinatal mental health issues. And initially, we didn't have a specific role around perinatal mental health, but actually she played into the regional clinical network and I think it still is phenomenal. So, even if you ask about something that somebody can't kind of completely solve for you, they will help you find out what the next or another option is instead, or alongside what's happening locally.
And if someone wants to say someone's interested in doing a fellowship or getting involved in commissioning, oh, okay, you've got the links here. Brilliant. So I was going to say, how do they find out about those opportunities?
So there's a few bits here. It's not exhaustive. I think I think we've got quite a lot on our website now, and more around general practice, particularly opportunities in general practice will come. I think that, and I'm massively biased here, but our bulletin's getting really good. We relaunched a bulletin over the summer, and we try and put opportunities in there. There's Next Gen GP, so if you're not involved with Next Generation GP, find out about it, click on the link. The faculty have a range of fellowships. You do not, just to be really clear here, you don't need a fellowship in order to do what you've done, and I don't have one, I haven't had one, but it is worth using the resources that are out there now. RCGP always has kind of opportunities to be local champions. So they actually had some perinatal mental health ones recently, and as Hannah said, they've got a primary care network fellowship. The BMA, there's a link there about the King's Fund, just with some practical kind of tips as well. So yes, we'll definitely send the slides. I'll definitely send some additional information. I've got a pack around breaking down the long-term plan and the contract and stuff as well, if that's useful for people, just from practical note. But I'd be, really up for kind of questions and areas that I haven't covered.
Yeah, so by all means, send start posting your questions. And what I'll do is, we had quite a lot of questions emailed beforehand. So do you mind if I start with those and then we can...
Yeah, please do.
So one of the questions that came in was, how can I develop skills in leadership? I've seen a lot of different courses on leadership, but I'm not sure what kind of roles these would lead to. So how can you develop skills in leadership, and what kind of roles could these lead to?
In one sense, I'd almost, I wouldn't worry about whether it's a skill in leadership. I'd do it the other way around. So what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? What are you frustrated about? And work it that way. Because actually that will give you skills. That will give you skills in leading, but creating followership and working with others and negotiating and managing projects. If that's what it will give you a set of skills, but you'll do it in a much more enjoyable way. There are lots of fellowships. So the Leadership Academy, and I'll add some more links here as I think of them. But the Leadership Academy has leadership courses. Your local academic health science network will have leadership courses. But actually, I'm pretty sure the best kind of experiences I've had are the ones that have been kind of in situ in my local kind of system. And then I've done the masters just to kind of back up my learning and to give me some of the theoretical kind of application, or the thinking behind the theory. So flip it around and think about what you're interested in first, and build up through that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And so next question, I work 6 sessions as a salaried GP and have 2 small children. I'm desperate to be put to use outside of the patient setting, ! I have no idea how I can branch out. What steps do you take?
So I would first of all, I'd look at a couple of things. So actually, I might go back to this side. So see who you've got in your practice to talk to try and get some ideas about what might be available locally, either within the practice or within your local network. Go and speak to the CCG chair. I know just from the chat that people have had varying experiences, but usually clinician to clinician, you will hear that your CCG chair or maybe a governing body GP at your CCG will be really, really delighted to have you wanting to be involved in something. And actually, I think equally for the LMC as well, your local LMC chair will get a good feel for what's out there and what's happened, and kind of have a good idea of the history. So just starting off with some conversations to sort of say, look, I want to do something. What do you think? And don't forget, as we move to kind of network working, there'll be many more opportunities through that as well.
Okay. And the next question, how do you get involved in organisations such as NHS England? Are there many opportunities out there for GPs, and where are they advertised? Are there any prerequisites for applying for these positions?
So there are a number of roles I've actually now found. So one of the things I wanted to do while I was in this acting role was kind of find all the GPs that work for NHS England, and we have 77, which I just find incredible.
Oh wow!
Different places, and they work in regions, they work locally, so local medical directors, responsible officers, appraisers, I mean all sorts of different places. Roles are usually advertised on NHS jobs generally. Prerequisites depends on what the role is. So if you have a particular clinical focus, you might have had some experience in that clinical area. I'll come on to this, Cybele, sorry, it's just caught my attention, but hold on a sec. So we do advertise on there. One of the things that I say is just come and spend the day, either with me or a member of my team. I usually have people shadowing. I had somebody shadowing today. I usually have people shadowing most weeks, actually, just to get a feel for what the job is like, what the organisation is like, if that feels like a good fit. Definitely, I mean, if you're thinking about working with NHS England, talk to your local medical director, so of your local NHS England team, so or regions, so London, there's 7 regions now, so speaking to the local medical director would be a really good idea as well. So I'm just about, okay. So I was just reading sidebar. I mean, NHS England has lots of reputations, and one of the reasons I've got involved is to help move on the reputation. I think there's, particularly over the last few months, in terms of what we're doing with primary care over the, or our commitment to primary care over the next few years, we deliver that. Serena, did you have more questions?
Yeah. So next question is, I think my phone was interfering with the Wi-Fi then, so I just had to put that. Okay, so what do you feel will be the benefits of the new GP contract for salaried and sessional GPs?
I hope it's going to be a huge benefit. Actually, someone tweeted today, they called up, just on a very practical note, they called up their MDO. They usually paid, so let me just talk about indemnity for a moment.
Yeah.
Because it makes us have opportunities, it gives us opportunities to work differently. So their indemnity was £8,800 a year. It's now going to be £770 plus £90 for private cover up to £2,500. So their fees have dropped from 8,800 to 770, and that'll allow them to do all the out of hours and everything else that they want to do as well. So what it does is it helps in terms of income, which is important, but it also gives you a chance to work in other settings in a much more fluid and confident way, knowing that you've got the indemnity there. So I think on a very practical note, that's there. There are practical points also in terms of pay rises as well. But more broadly than that, I think the aspiration to work as a network is what gets exciting, because actually you can have a more flexible career, because the network offers a scale that an individual practice often doesn't. And some of the really what I would describe as more successful networks across the country, because there are already, many that are well established, are able to do that now. So I've been out to a few where they've sort of said, well, this person, pointing to it, this person wants to do childcare and term time sessions, and this person is really interested in palliative care, and this person wants to do kind of education for the local kind of network, and it just allows, that scale allows people to have more flexible careers that work with both their own kind of personal circumstances, but also their passions, whether that's clinically or otherwise. So I think this is the opportunity that a new cohort of GPs will feel, I hope, well supported by and really energised by.
And is the idea with indemnity that it will just automatically kick in, and then the GPs don't have to worry about running?
You'll get a refund. So the way that it'll work is on the 1st of April, MDAs will have to think through, what refund and when you get it and how, but you will get a refund for the amount that the new contract covers. That might be different if you're working in a practice that pays your indemnity. So there's some things that we're still working through, and I have conversations about indemnity most days. But essentially, you'll still need your personal liability cover so that you can make your representations at GMC and what have you. So if you're not sure, talk to your MDO. Keep your cover as it is, because you will get the refund. Don't ever leave yourself without cover, especially as we're going through sort of sorting out the final processes of this. But it is a huge offer for the profession, for us to all work in a different way potentially.
And we've had a lot of partners kind of sign up for this webinar. How will it impact them? I get the benefit for the sessional community, but for partners, so they'll get refunded just the same, so their practice will get refunded.
Yeah, that's right. And also in the wider sense with the contract and the network, I want to say I really hope, but I really believe that this will be a chance for partners to have a better balance in their lives, if that's possible, if that's what they want as well. But also a chance to work with potentially new people and work in slightly different ways, and make the job sustainable again and actually fun again, and actually then more people might want to become partners again. So I think the other piece for me is the certainty that the contract provides, because it is 5 years, so you can start to look forward. And some of the partners that I know, around the country have messaged me kind of gone, right, we've sat down now and we're starting to think about what we want to achieve over the next 5 years and how we want to work and who we want to work with. And that stuff, having that autonomy and that agency and that ability to be self-determining is very, very important. I think we all recognise that, and I think it finally gives us the chance to do that, because actually we can sit there and go, that's where I want to get to, and I can do that now because I can see what's coming to me. It's no longer that I'm waiting for every year annual contracting cycle. It's no longer that I've got siloed budgets. Broadly, we're doing as well as we can on that. No more tapering, no more bidding for pockets of money and not quite sure how I'm going to be sustainable. But this is a chance for clarity and certainty for the future.
Yeah, and I think there's some roles coming up within the like primary care network leads, so that actually one of the things that we've been discussing today is like, where are the opportunities? So I guess that could be, if you're passionate about kind of establishing networks in your area, or that would be something ideal that a lot of people could look to apply to.
Absolutely. And we're going we're looking at fellowships as well. So there's a range of things that will start to come out over the next couple of months, and opportunities for people to get more involved.
Great. Okay. So last question. I've got about 5 more questions, but I'll do the last one now because we've overrun by half an hour. So, and I think we'll need a nice evening.
Sorry.
Last question. I'm just trying to find, there's so many good ones here. I'm trying to think so I think I'll end on this one. What was the most helpful thing that has shaped your career?
So that's quite an easy one. That was, and this actually, I think forms part of who I am and who I've become and I'm becoming. It was that deputy chief exec who listened. So I was listened to, and then she did something. She made a space for me to then do something. And I think that's what's then happened through my career, is that I've tried really hard to hear other people, make spaces for other people, but also to feel brave and able to try out things because she took a chance on me. So it gives you confidence that you can try out stuff, and I want you to feel that. If you don't already, many of you I can see already do. But to try stuff out, and it's okay to get it wrong, but try stuff out. I think that's so important.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I hope you've all enjoyed it. And Nikki, you happy for me to share the slides and send them through?
Yeah,
brilliant. I will do so. Great. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, Nikki, for your lovely insights and for sharing your journey. And I wish you all a good night.
Good night.
Good night.